personnel matters. I think the government should be completely transparent. Nothing should be hidden. We have the Brown Act now. If I was on with Rashid here and Rob on the council, I couldn't tell Rob something and then have him share it with Rashid just so that we could get 3 votes on the council. And so we have the Brown Act for council members, and we need to be completely transparent.
Thank you. Rob, please share with us what you would do if elected as far as transparency, sharing information about hidden fees, and financial accounting.
Absolute transparency, and as Ed pointed out, the 2 areas that it's not possible, that I completely understand. But when we have services that are given to us by the county, I want to see what the upcharge is from the Sheriff's Department. I want to see what the upcharge is from our fire. We need to look at these things. The citizenry needs to be aware of that. What we charge the citizens in an upcharge when it comes to sewer and things of that nature. I want to know why we don't give preference to businesses in the city when the city goes out to bid. If we want to keep our dollars locally, why aren't we allowing the businesses here to have priority in those bids if they're competitive? So yes, complete transparency.
Thank you. Chase, tell us how you would promote transparency if you were elected.
Well, I would promote transparency, well, of course, within legal means, what we can legally disclose, we should. I would also make the city site more of a transparent portal. You got to dig through several files a lot of times to find out who's on some of these commissions. You can't really find out off the city site that easily exactly who's on the planning commission. Sometimes you got to dig down into a PDF to find it, because when I've looked, it's not listed right there. So make the city site a portal that is accessible to the residents, easy for them to access everything. Don't make it a maze and difficult for them to access.
Thank you. Dan, we'll wrap up with you on promoting transparency.
One of the conventions I attended, the California League of Cities, asked the same question. And I'll just use my smartphone as an example. There are a number of things, a number of apps that you can get that connect you directly to the city site. Where what Chase was saying, sometimes it is very cumbersome when you go on TOX.org. But some of these new applications, which are very inexpensive, can be implemented, whether it's for budgets, for environments, for water conservation. So I'd like to use technology better. This was my answer. Technology to help make transparency easier. Because quite frankly, folks, if it's not easy, we're not going to do it. But if I can pop up on my smartphone some questions about a budgetary item, or I want to learn more about water conservation, I'm not going to wait until I get home. I can pull up my phone, pull out a map, and find out exactly what I need to be doing to save water. That'll work.
Thank you. We're going to try and combine several questions here around the same theme. We are going to begin with you, Dan. It's about economic development. So share with us your thoughts. Do we need more industry and businesses? What about that Kmart site? Do you have any thoughts about that? Share with us your views on economic development, please.
This is a really old-fashioned response, but it works. We need more people selling the benefits of Thousand Oaks. We all know this, but a lot of people who are thinking about moving here, their businesses, their 200 employees or their 300 employees, their biomed, their high-tech, they don't necessarily know it. We have one economic development manager for an organization, a city, that has $1.2 billion in fixed assets. If this were a company, I would have a sales force of 20 or 30 people telling people the Thousand Oaks story, why we need to have businesses here, because businesses drive lots of other things. In terms of the Kmart site, if you could receive unrestricted income in the millions of dollars every year by not developing it, would you develop it? We have a very difficult situation with Kmart, with a very long lease, still 7 or 8 years left on this lease. To be able to convince someone to give that kind of free cash flow would be a tough one. Would I like to see it changed around? Absolutely.
Thank you. Chase, your position on economic development and the Kmart site.
Let me get the Kmart site out the way real quick. I think there needs to be a grocery store there. It's a bit of a food desert in that area. It takes about 2 miles for some people in the area to get to a supermarket. That has to change. Lassen's has moved in over at the lakes, but they can be very expensive, and for some people in my area, they can't afford to shop there on a regular basis. So supermarket, and then other things that can move in there. There's restaurant space, so there should be an anchor store. As far as future economic development, I said in the last campaign, council member has to be an ambassador for the city. They got to get out there and talk about the attributes. I've sold things on the floor at JCPenney and Macy's. I can sell lard to a bodybuilder, so I can assure the city lots of business. And as I mentioned before, I would partner with the Chamber of Commerce to do a yearly business fair where those attributes could be on display. Thanks.
All right. Rob, please share your thoughts about economic development and also the Kmart site.
Economic development, this would be a perfect segue to that TO token. The idea, we all know the entertainment books that nonprofits sell. And that entertainment book, the nonprofit gets a portion of it, the remainder goes to the entertainment book company. What I'd like to do is I'd like to have maybe the Chamber of Commerce develop a TO token that our 5th and 6th graders would compete to design every year, be a new one every year. Nonprofits would sell it, they would get a portion of the proceeds, the rest would go to the Chamber of Commerce to help develop it. And as you use that TO token in the city, you get 10% off shopping at any local store. It would help our nonprofits, it would keep the money in the town, and every year you'd have a new one. You'd collect these, and the citizens would have a heart for the community. You can imagine 40 years of collecting these, and maybe the first 5 children born in the city get a silver one from the city fathers, and that would be an opportunity. As far as the Kmart, it's exactly what Dan said. This is a quagmire that I believe the city council can resolve, and if I'm elected, I'm working on that.
Okay, thank you. And Ed, we'll hear your thoughts about economic development and Kmart.
Well, I don't know about Kmart. I remember when it was open, I thought it was a good store. I believe that the person that wanted to develop there was going to completely do a facelift on the whole area and put in a Home Depot, as I recall. I don't know the pros and cons of that argument. I would love to see that area have a facelift and have a beautiful store there to have that type of supplies for gardening and for construction and so forth, to not have to drive all the way out to the end of Newbury Park. But I guess there were other factors that were involved in that. As far as encouraging industry, I was on the master plan committee and we purposely designated the north part of Newbury Park as a light industrial area. And that's why we've had the industry that we've had. Some people were against having any industry. And we said we needed that to have the income from that. And it would be good for the financial development of our city. I'm in favor of advertising, but whatever Dan said, I don't know how many people we need to do that, but I would be interested in that, but no giveaways. No giveaways like some cities do to
more lakes.
arenas.
Okay, thank you. You know what, let's give him a round of applause. Thank you. And before we get to the closing statements, I'm afraid we're out of time, but I want to just take a moment to share with you some of the other thoughtful questions that were asked that we ran out of time. If there's something that you wish to address in your closing statement, you could. And I'm not going to read all of them, but we had over 125 people here tonight. A lot of great questions. But some of the things on your constituents' minds. What do you think about the development on the corner of Lombard and Thousand Oaks and possibly losing a couple of trees? Do you believe in the separation of church and state for government officials? What would be your position on public transit in the city? What if marijuana is legal in California? What would be some of your policies? How can the city assist candidates such as Twitter and websites and TOTV? And can you suggest partnerships with the school district? Mostly school districts work separately from city, but perhaps somebody had an idea. There was also questions about the issue of terrorism. Could Thousand Oaks be threatened by terrorists? And should the Thousand Oaks Planning Commission be elected instead of appointed? That was on somebody's mind. A reminder that City Council is a nonpartisan office. So should the political parties be involved in these elections? And there's a couple others as well, all very good. It's my pleasure to be able to read your questions. Thank you for that opportunity. And I'd also like to just take a little bit of a moment to tell you about the League of Women Voters, a little more than we mentioned earlier. But the League was formed in 1920 to educate